Call the meeting of the 12th of June to order. Secretary, please record the roll of commissioners. And if you'd all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before you have the minutes of the May 8th meeting. Are there any corrections or additions?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the minutes as printed.
Motion by Pat, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sean. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried without dissent. Okay, we have a busy morning this morning. We want to, first on our list, to consider a variance request to exceed the maximum square footage of a detached structure on a RR zone lot by 400 square feet. 1,200 square feet to 16. Property located at 3148 111 East Avenue Southwest. Who's here to speak for that? No one. Commissioners, would you like to make some comments? Would you like to approve or deny this request?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. I was just going to ask if there was any kind of a covenants that originally was established for that subdivision. But since there's no one here, I would make a motion that we table this.
Motion by Pat to table. Is there any discussion on that? No discussion on the table? I don't think so. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trevor. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, we'll table that till, I guess we got another one next month again, huh? B on our list, number 2, to consider a variance request exceeding the maximum square footage of a detached structure on an RR zone lot by 1,300 square feet. Property located at 3571 106 T Avenue Southwest. Anyone here to speak for that? Come on up to the mic, give us your name and all the particulars here.
I'm Ryan Romanishin. We purchased that property almost exactly 2 years ago with intent to, in the future, build a shop, large garage, and now we're here to ask for permission to do so.
Okay. Questions for Ryan? We have the next on our agenda then would be to approve the position of this building, right?
Yeah, there's a size deal and a position of where it is on the property with how it lays out of the land. If it was easily to put somewhere else, I sure would, with how the property is, with the septic where the house is, the propane. It would just be easier to have it here without massive dirt, work, things of that nature,
Okay. I guess we could take these individually here, but a question?
I guess I have a couple questions, and I'll ask you the same thing. Is there a variance?
Covenant?
Any kind of a covenant in your area for where this building can be placed?
I don't believe so. I do have the covenants in an email that I sent to the builder and stuff like that. And I don't even believe that there's a size thing. I think that's all just city rules as far as my knowledge. You know, I didn't even know that the structure ahead of the house was a thing until the variance, you know what I mean? And we read through the covenants even when we purchased the house. You know, it needs to be a new structure. You can't move in a old decrepit building, things like that, you know.
That small space of gravel that you had placed, I assume that's where you're going to set the building?
Yeah, that's where it was staked out at, and we can push that around to wherever we need. I had a guy last year lined up to haul some dirt in, and he ended up doing it this spring. It was supposed to be last fall, and then, you know, this deal, I didn't even know about this. I just thought it was the builder even applied for the building permit and stuff like that when we found out we needed the variance. So yeah, the dirt is there now, but we can move that around or not use it, I guess, if it is denied. But yeah, that, if you were up there, that is where I would like it to be, you know.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? The building official here, Elaine, why have we, you know, there's many houses that the garage extends further out than the house does, so we're actually getting that position in a lot of homes. What is the main reason for having the garage or an outbuilding behind the house? I know it was.
Well, most of those structures, Mr. Chairman, were put up with the garage extending, or they were built that way, but when there's a structure put in front of the home, usually what happened in those scenarios is the home, as in this case, is set back far enough, so it's not a big deal. But the reason that was put into the code was people were putting small sheds and detached structures in front of the house in the front yard setback and doing it without permission over the years, and then we would catch it later when they applied for something else. So we'd have to go back and explain why that wasn't allowed. So that's the main reason for it. Is we're not saying it hasn't been done, because there has been several approved, obviously. Because when you're 100 feet back and you're only required to be 40, I mean, who are we to say at that point? At that point, it's compliant. So it's still something that is written in the code. It's almost a oxymoron, because it contradicts itself, but it still has to be addressed by the building department.
Okay. Questions for Ryan, or is there anyone here in the audience to speak for or against the building?
We've had no public comments at this time.
Public comments, right.
Yeah.
And the telephone number here, if anyone wants to call in, is 701-456-7006. Any comments from the phone, from the public? Any other comments from the board members?
I do have a comment. So normally when we allow a building structure, an outbuilding to exceed the minimum or the maximums, we put limitations on other outbuildings. So it looks from the picture here that there's other other sheds,
There,
garages?
there's like a garden tractor shed that's maybe 10 by 10, something like that. That's the only other structure.
What's this structure, right along the property line?
To the north?
To the north, yeah.
That's like a steel horse shelter that was left there when we bought it. Like, it's got a deal, you can pick it up and move it.
Okay.
You know, it's not a permanent anything. They had horses there before we bought it, and that's what that is.
Okay.
So I guess I don't consider that a structure being it can be loaded on a trailer, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And if need be, that can go away.
Okay.
Okay, let's just take one at a time here then. Let's take B on your agenda. Square footage. Is there a motion?
Just-
Go ahead.
One quick question. I'm
Go ahead.
assuming with the variance, that includes the shed that the tractor storage building is included in this number as well, right?
Yes, it's all included in here. And our staff recommends that there be no additional detached structures if this is permitted, whether they're permitted or unpermitted. So this will be the last structure on the property.
Any other questions?
No.
Are you ready for a motion?
I move the City of Dickinson Board of Adjustment recommend approval of the max square footage variance subject to the conditions above as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare, with the additional condition that no additional detached structures be permitted or unpermitted.
Motion by Sean. Is there a second? Second by Bruce. Any further comments? Any further questions? Hearing none. Sean?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Trevor?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
How would I? Very good. Okay, let's just take the location now. I think that's something to have in mind, but any other questions? Any other comments on location?
What is the setback from the street expected to be?
The house to the street is 150 feet, and to where we have it staked is about 115 feet. And it's, you know, kind of offset like this. You know, we could push it back another 15 to 20 feet if need be, but it would be, there's no way we could get it to where, like, as far back as the house is, you know, but right to where we have it, it's about it would be 115 feet from the street.
So it meets all requirements as far as setback.
Yes, it does.
There's no issues there. It's just being in
Just
front of the
location.
house.
It's just the location of
Yes, it does meet the requirement.
it. Okay. Comments from the public? Hearing none. Further comments from the board? Hearing none. Are you ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the City of Dickinson, or the Dickinson Board of Adjustment recommend the approval of the setback adjustment, subject to the conditions discussed on the drawing.
Motion by Bruce. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sean. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Bruce,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Trevor,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. make it really good-looking building.
We sure will do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right, thanks.
Next on our list, to consider a variance request to exceed the maximum square footage of an on-premises sign on a CC zone lot by 61 square feet, located at 1674 15th Street West. Who's here for that? Morning, Luke.
Good morning. So the particulars.
Name and all the particulars there.
Oh, yeah, so I'm Luke Steiner. I'm an owner of Elite PT, the building in question. And it pertains to our signs, which were put up in 2017. And we got audited in about a year ago, based on, I guess when somebody applies for a permit, everybody gets audited in that building. And so we actually, when we put up our signs, we didn't even know there was a permit you had to get. And so the sign company made them, and then we put them up. And 5 years later, we, are told, hey, you gotta get a permit for these. So we ended up getting a permit, or trying to get a permit, but we're disagreeing with the city on what is allowed for footage, square footage on the sign. At first I thought we were just gonna change our signs, but when I looked at the code, we're actually within the code from the way I interpret it. And that's all I'm asking, is that the code is interpreted how it's written and not how it's been enforced. That's the only thing I really wanted. So I don't know if that needs to come in the form of a variance, but if we need to discuss the code at all. But if, at a minimum, I'd like a variance. Our building has 40 feet of linear footage to the south, 60 to the west, and then 40 to the north. So we have a total of 140 linear footage, or frontage. So our signage comes to about a little under 80 square feet. And so I guess we're just here trying to get this sorted out.
Okay. Blaine, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I can comment on how we interpret things, and what we're looking for, or looking at, is actually the application that was sent in showed that there was 101 square feet of sign. Unless that's inaccurate, but that's what we went off of. So this would be 61 square feet over what's allowed, and we interpret it as 40 square feet, because the frontage that the building department has always looked at is the side of the building that is addressed. So the address is on 15th Street, that's 40 lineal feet of frontage, that's 40 square feet of signage.
Is there an entrance from 15th?
What's that?
Is there an entrance to your building?
It'd be on the north side. So that's on the opposite side of 15th. And that is not in the code either, that you have to go off of the address. The code states street frontage is basically the side of your building that faces the public, a public right-of-way, and then expands on that and says, or a parking lot, which we have either one of those on all three sides. Which, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you have three sides exposed to the public, you should get a little more square footage for your signs, which is kind of the spirit of the law, I would say. And that, like I said, I think when I read the code, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it says, the aggregate sign area shall not exceed 1 square foot per each linear foot of building frontage facing a public street or a parking lot. So, I don't know. To me, the way I read it is we have 140 feet to work with. So we have a whole, I don't know if you guys looked at the pictures, we have a whole west side. We don't even have a sign on. It's the longest side of our building, and it faces State Street. We don't put up a sign. We're just asking for You know, we'll fill out the permit and do everything the right way, but we just want to keep our signs up there. Nobody's made any complaints. Our neighbors, I have signed statements from our neighbors. I don't know if you guys got that. But our neighbors next to us and then below us, they signed statements saying it doesn't bother them. The owner of the building signed a statement, says it doesn't bother him either. And like I said, I haven't heard of any complaints that, you know, our signs are bothering people, but.
Comments, questions? What we're interested in now is just give you a variance to keep the sign you have. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I would say variance for 140 square feet, because if we ever need to change our signs, you know, we would like to use the square footage. So the person below us they went off of what was recommended by the city, and it was 20 square feet. And if you're on 15th Street, you cannot read their sign. You have no idea what that says. I think it should be allowed. Well, it's in the code, but it should be interpreted to allow these businesses to market themselves, these small businesses. And you just can't see her sign from that distance. It's 20 square feet. That's so small. If we went by that for 20 square feet around the building, I mean, that's like 3.5 feet per sign, so.
Mr. Chairman, just to weigh in on this briefly, the definition of building frontage as defined by code is defined as the linear length of a building facing a public street right-of-way exclusive of alleys, or the linear length of the street right-of-way, whichever is smaller. Building frontage is further then identified in the section which talks about the basic elements for on-premise signs, which says that each premise, and in the case of a multi-occupancy building, each unit shall be permitted to display building signs, the aggregate sign area of which shall not exceed 1 square foot per linear foot of building frontage facing a public street or parking lot, but in no event more than 200 square feet of aggregate sign area. So the building frontage, which talks about the facing a public street, is further referenced in that second subsection. So that is the interpretation that the building department is using based on the defined definition of building frontage. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that when we talk about what the current definition is in the code. Whether you choose to go outside of that is the purpose of the variance, but as far as the city is concerned with defining building frontage, it talks about that square footage facing a public street. I don't know if that further complicates it or clarifies it, but that's how it's currently defined.
I just have a question. So the building frontage, like when the building department uses it, is to determine not only like setbacks, front door location, but where you place your address, correct? You're supposed to place your address number on the front of the building.
I do believe that's correct, but I'm going to defer to Mr. Dukart for a.
That is correct.
So, the frontage, I think, frontage for building purposes or addressing locations, I think the confusion in this case is maybe frontage that the building department uses to determine the front of the building where the address should be, that sort of stuff, and like street exposure of a commercial building. You know, it might not be defined as frontage, but I think in his case, it's something that, like, that's where the confusion is in this case of how the city or a building would determine where the front is, and like street exposure. You know, I could see that. I'm not saying which is which, but I'm just saying like the building frontage definition is confusing, I think, for the public or a business owner if they have a building that's surrounded by street.
Is there any,
Go ahead.
is there any consideration to how far a commercial building is offset from the street? You know, if that building was right on the sidewalk, you know, a sign as described in the code is probably big enough, you can read it. But a building that's offset as far as this building is from the street, you know, that size of sign isn't adequate to be able to read from the street. Is that what your point was?
Yeah, yeah, with that south side,
Yeah,
because that's 15th and States, that intersection there. And we have older patients, you know, they're trying to find their place, and we don't need them, you know, trying to squint and try and figure out things right on the fly as they're coming down States. I mean, so it's kind of one of those things, it's just common sense. You want them to be able to see your sign from the road.
So is there any consideration to distance from the public?
There's no specification on that.
Okay.
No, it's based on frontage itself, so that's the only definition that's used, that is actually in the municipal code and that we use.
I have another question. What if there's like, 3 businesses that share 30 feet of frontage?
If there's 3 businesses that share, as in Luke's case there's 40 feet of frontage there, that means they can both have 40 square feet. But if you have 2 sides, it says or, it's specific in here. It's or, the alleyway or parking lot, it's not both. So he would have to split his 40 square feet up. 20 square feet on the front, or 20 on the back, or just 40 on the front, or 40 on the back. So if they're 2-level or 3-level, they all get that lineal square footage. So they could still all have 40 square feet.
Well, we'd get the minimum of 20 square feet. That's where it started, was the minimum you had to split. Because he interprets it as we're all one unit. So me and the neighbor below us are one unit. But I don't see how, we pay our own rent, we're separate businesses, there's no stairs between or anything. And it just frankly is not in the code. That's not in the code, what you were stating. I mean, you did state the code, but you're interpreting it, I would say, incorrectly. I mean, it says that each unit is entitled to its own frontage. That's what the first line in that one section says. So I think our unit, just like their unit, it doesn't make sense that we would have to start splitting just because we're stacked. I mean, unless somebody has a reason for that. That you would, you know, limit your signage just because you're stacked on another business.
Just a quick question. Did you say that he's splitting because of the business or splitting because he's got a sign on the front and the back?
Splitting because he has a sign on the front and the back.
And because of the frontage, you're allowed 40 square feet, but you want to put it on both sides, so then it's 20 on both, or 40 on one.
Correct.
I really don't think that's what was originally stated to me. It was because they pulled that that's why she's only got 20 down there. If that was true, she would have 40. She's only got 20 square feet, so I don't know, I think there's a miscommunication there, but at the end of the day, we got 40, 60, and 40, and we're really only using part of that square footage that's facing the public. But
Further questions? Does that get to be, Luke, does that get to be a little bit of to have that front sign and the entrance to your building is on the back side? So really, your address isn't even right?
yeah, like our address is actually on the north
That's
side.
a little confusing to me. If you drive by and there's a sign that says Elite and you can't enter it from the street side at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's, so yeah, we have signage on both sides, and then that, like I said, that west side, we don't have anything up there, but.
Okay. Further comments, questions?
I have a
Public,
question.
oh, go ahead.
Is there a lot of other signs where we have an issue like this, or is
There are several other signs over the past 2 years that I've been working on signage. But as Luke or Mr. Steiner stated, if signs go up and we didn't catch them or see them, then he referred to it as being audited, which is true. We go through then and see if the entire building's in compliance, if somebody applies for a sign. And then we go from there. So if somebody didn't apply, we ask them to apply for their sign and check it to make sure it meets compliance.
Any comments from the public? Any further comments from board members? Bruce?
So the 100 square feet, that's the total of the front sign and the back sign. Is that correct?
Well, it's kind of confusing because we had talked, and he was saying you can use the lettering of the sign, because the backboard is white. And so he was, I think, being gracious to us, saying, hey, you just use the lettering for the square footage. And so I think when I actually filled out the online application, I just used the actual sign, so that's why it's bigger.
101 square feet.
Yeah. But,
But it is the total of the front sign and the back sign.
And the back sign, yes.
yeah, and I talked to Sure Sign, they put it up, they said it was, the total was, let's see, 36 square feet on the south, and the north was 21.4 for the actual lettering. But the actual sign was bigger. Does that make sense?
Any further? I guess we're not here really to make a decision on the code, but we're here to give him a variance or deny him a variance for the sign on the front.
What would the variance be then for the letters or the
It would be for
actual-
the signage itself,
The
so it'd be exceeding it by 61 square feet. Because you have to go by everything that's there. That includes the cabinet or the face of the sign.
Okay. Further questions, further answers, or further comments? If not, are you ready for a motion? Approval or denial? Give you a few minutes here. Pretty quiet, guys.
Just a quick question on the frontage again. In building frontage, the linear length of a building facing a public street right-of-way exclusive of alleys, or the linear length of a street right-of-way, whichever is smaller. Does this not have 100 foot of street right-of-way facage, not counting the parking lot?
That's not how we look at it. We look at the frontage or accessibility of the building. So if it didn't have an address on it, we would look at the rear side. It says whichever is smaller. We would never look at the side because that's inaccessible. That's not an access to the building. So the building department has never taken that into account. That's if there's no other entrances and that was the only place to put signage, then that would be considered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it.
Okay, okay.
Any further questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Since we always look at these as like specific one-off instances, and the signs are already there, I'm more inclined to allow them, but would that lead to a lot of hardships from the city's instance of people putting up signs before they do the permit and then coming back, or? 'Cause
It would definitely set a precedent, but that's already been established, I believe. We've run into these before. But
Yeah.
obviously, if you were to approve this variance, we would definitely request that he would have to get a permit for the signs at their current size, or, I mean, he doesn't have a permit currently. These are unpermitted signs.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the city. In your building plans review and such, do you have a section in there that asks the individual doing the building or the owner of the building to apply for these things? I mean, it seems like this thing is 5 years old. How did it stay there this long without somebody seeing it? It's just, to me, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're gonna move into a place or whatever, shouldn't there be something that this man has to comply with? I mean, we spend a lot of time on this, and it seems like it's redundant. I mean, why is that here?
The building owner is definitely aware that there are signs required in every circumstance, including this one. That building owner does know, because he has to sign an affidavit for Mr. Steiner to get a sign. So all building owners are aware that sign permits are required. And there are actually sign permits on this building dating back to 2014, or 2014, so,
So he just never complied with it,
correct.
but he was in the building. I mean, that's kind of, what I'm getting at is, shouldn't there be a check there someplace that, requires
When
this.
there's tenants moving in and out of buildings, that slips past us, we try to enforce everything we can, but we're not the legal owners of the building, we're not changing leases. So, but yes, to answer your question, Pat, they are definitely aware of the fact that sign permits are required.
Okay.
No different than any other commercial building in town.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Anyone for a motion?
I've got one other question.
Okay, Bruce.
So, the other signs on this building, do they all meet code? Or is this just one of many coming in front of us?
The other buildings, as far as what I have at my access to measure them, do meet code, and they are permitted
On this building?
on this building.
I guess I'll make a comment because we're kind of, it seems like nobody's 100% sure on this. I'm a little torn on this because I don't really want to set a new sign precedent, and whether the, you know, there needs to be some code issue, whatever, that's not our decision. But I'm a little torn because these are already up, and the owner of the building did not inform the tenant of the building about the size requirements. As far as, I mean, we don't have any proof that you're informed either way, but I mean, it doesn't sound like he was informed about this. So
Permit.
the hardship for the tenant is not necessarily, I mean, it's still his hardship, but it's kind of unduly on him that the owner of the building didn't inform him of the requirements.
Yeah, I'm guessing in 2017, there just must not have been a lot of signs that were doing the permits. I mean, I don't know how that slips through the cracks, because we weren't informed by anybody, you know, whether it was
Well,
owner or,
I think he stated that he's just been focusing on the signs in the last couple of years also, you know, the city specifically, you know, probably knew there was an issue and have taken action to fix it, but, so I guess I'm a little torn. I really don't want to set a precedent, but I understand that this is a pretty decent hardship of, you know, not necessarily his fault, but still his responsibility, so that's where I'm at.
and I guess I would say, and also, you know, I would like a variance, but I really think the city should consider interpreting this the correct way, in that, you know, if the public can see that side of your building, that should be included in the allotted square footage you get to use for a sign. You know, we shouldn't be limiting, I just don't know what the drawback is there. I understand that there should be a limitation, and there is. You can never go over 200, but I don't know why we have to err on the side of limiting these small businesses. You know, that's just my opinion.
I'm sure there's probably buildings where it would get wildly out of control if, you know, but yeah, that's, I mean, something that could be discussed with a different meeting or a different, you know, somebody else with the city, but.
Any other?
If we did, what if we did like if we would approve it with the size of the letters, and then say if he ever replaces his sign, he's only allowed to do the square footage of the letters, is that something that would maybe make it easier for everybody and not necessarily lead to a hugely specific issue, or, I don't know, I'm just trying to get us to a decision here.
That'd still exceed it, but, I mean, that's up to the board to decide that, but it still exceeds the 40 square feet, even with the letters, if that helps you understand
That
it.
was 50, I was just saying for replacing the signs, and you don't have the 100 replaced, but I don't know.
Decision time? Let's make a decision, people.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Bruce?
just to refresh my memory, the sign on the north side is how many square feet?
21.4, I think.
On the south side?
On the north side,
On the north side?
yeah.
21.
Yeah, 21.4.
And the sign on the south?
36.
Yep.
That's the letters though.
That's the size of the letter.
That'd be the letters, yep.
So if the sign in the front was the same size as the sign on the back, would he be within code?
He'd be close to code.
Okay. And if you had a 21 square foot sign on the front, would you be able to see that from the street? Would you be able to read that from the street?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion that we accept this variance based on the fact that, considering how far offset the building is from the street, that the sign would be unlegible, at the existing code.
Okay,
I would second that motion.
second. Okay, motion by Bruce, second by Pat. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, yes.
I would just ask for clarification on that motion. Are you also requiring the applicant to then submit a permit and get the correct permit for the signage based on the square footage?
Of course
Well, I think that would be necessary.
No problem.
Please add that to the motion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any further questions, any further comments? Okay. Bruce,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Sean,
No.
Trevor,
Aye.
and I will vote no. Luke? So we have 3-2 vote, so it does pass. Okay?
Okay,
Get
thank
it
you.
done, Luke.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming. Okay, next on our list, to consider a variance request to exceed the maximum square footage of a detached structure on an R1 zone lot by 150 square feet. Property located at 11085 32 V Street. Who's here for that?
Morning.
Good morning.
Matt Michelson. Yeah, I'm asking for 150 square feet variance on a detached garage.
Okay, Matt, I gotta get this out here. Oh, yeah, that's the one that he did a lot of time on the drawing. Okay, Matt, 50, is it 50 feet from the property line? The shop,
Yes,
okay?
it'd be more than 50 from the east property line.
And your lot is 475
Yeah,
by
it's
300?
it's like 1.5 acres. So whatever. To
Okay.
be honest, I'm not sure on the square
Okay.
footage.
Okay. Questions, comments? Very close here.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. You have a pad poured for this already, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's really all I have, I guess.
Okay. Other comments? Open to the public? No one here? Comments, questions for Matt? Here again, I would suspect that no other building, if you make the motion, no other building, Blaine, would be permitted?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Did
Go
the
ahead.
city receive any feedback on this at all?
We, at this time, we have no public, we have one neighbor inquiry at the time, just ask about what they were building. So that's the only thing that we've received.
Questions, comments? Are you ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we, the City Board of Adjustments recommends approval of the detached structure variance subject to conditions above as meeting all requirements of the city municipal codes and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare. In addition, there would be no other structures added to this lot.
Okay, motion by Pat, is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second.
Second by Trevor. Further discussion? Hearing none. Pat?
Aye.
Trevor?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Make it look good, Matt.
Yeah, but my wife won't have it any other way, so
Okay,
thank you.
thanks for coming. Any other business?
So I've got a question.
Yeah,
In further considering our previous motion on the signage, one thing that, can we continue talking about that, or do we need another motion of some kind?
I'm guessing not looking at an agenda, but I don't think it's probably on the agenda for further discussion. But certainly, I think for the next meeting, since we're having one next month, I hear, that we can add it as a topic of discussion and potentially maybe a work session item if you gentlemen want to talk about the code. I don't think it's an issue of the code being interpreted incorrectly. I think it's an issue of whether the code maybe needs to be changed. So if those are conversations that you want to have, I would recommend that you gentlemen take a look at the existing code and maybe get a copy of it from Mr. Dukart, and then come back and we can have a more informed discussion next meeting and maybe make it a work session item.
I guess where I was going with it is I would be one thing that I didn't put in the motion that I wanted to add into the motion was the limitation of the square footage of the signs, if they were to be replaced, that they are limited to the letters, to a certain square footage. And I didn't add that into the motion.
So you want to go back and amend?
Yes.
Okay, understood. So
Yeah.
you would have to make a motion, basically to amend your existing motion, and then the person that seconded it, I don't remember who that was. Pat would have to agree to do that for further reconsideration, then we make a second motion on what you wanted to include.
Okay.
So hopefully Haley gets that correct in the meeting minutes, so. So, Mr. Burke, you would have to make a motion to reconsider,
Okay.
to add and amend to your existing motion, so if you would go ahead and do that.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the previous motion on the signage for Luke Steiner.
And Mr. Bren, would you second that?
I would second that, yes.
And then further
And
discussion
then
on what
there's
you want
further
to,
discussion on that motion.
yep,
Yeah, so, so in the motion, there was some, in the discussion, there was some footages brought up, and they were based on the existing size of the sign based on the lettering. I think it was 21 square feet and 36 square feet. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, 21.4 and 36 square feet. I would like to amend the motion to state that if the signs were replaced, that they could be no more than 21.4 square feet in the back and 36 square feet in the front.
Maybe we should say north and south.
Or, yeah, north and south. That's what I was considering. Is if the, you know, we kinda left it wide open in that, that if the signs are replaced, do we want them allowed? Is that the time where we get the signs a little closer to code?
Well, I guess, you know, Luke made the statement that you couldn't read a sign that was that small, and that's a crock. That building isn't set, you know, that far back. If you can't see that, you shouldn't be driving, I think, you know, so I don't know. But anyhow, he has amended his motion now, right? And
and he's seconded
he
the
has
motion to
seconded that.
reconsider. So just so I'm understanding, are we wanting to make it clear that in the event that the signs are taken down, no additional structure or signage that would go up on the building has the ability to exceed the square footage? So you're basically going back to square one. You don't get the privilege of putting up another sign that's also not in compliance.
Correct.
okay,
But to be in compliance, then both would have to be at 20 square feet, right? Not the 36. It would
That's correct.
be 20 and 20.
But Mr. Steiner also has the option to just leave the one sign or make the one sign in compliance, not put one on the other side. Window signs are not included in this, and I did explain that to him. They can have that on the north side where their entrance is, or flip-flop and don't have a sign on the south side, but we only enforce the way the code is written and the way the code has always been followed. We're not starting something new here. This is the way it's always been done. And I came in way late in the story, so I'm just doing the same enforcement that we've always done.
Do you
Pat?
find, are there a lot of signs like that in your travels that you've conducted so far?
There were 3 in the past couple years, so it wasn't an atrocious amount, but there's also signage up there, Pat, that I'm not gonna get a ladder and go climb up and measure the sign. So just by looking at some of them, I can tell you right now that there's signs in town that are over the square footage, but we're not gonna do anything with a sign that's been there for 15 years if nobody else is redoing it. Now Chad's Automotive came in and applied for a new sign. Well, we required that he takes all the signage down, that's all over the building, and just has the one sign up, because it would be a lighted wall sign. Well, he hasn't done anything since, so I don't know if that's because he doesn't want to take all the small ones down, or, but in that scenario, that's what we do. So Simonson, same way, their signage was actually out in the right-of-way, and you're only allowed to come in the right-of-way so far. So they had to revamp their sign when they redid it, because it was out of compliance. So there's just, it happens. I mean, they're out there, but I can't measure every sign in town, but we definitely want to get them into compliance once a new sign is applied for. So, and the sign companies are generally very good about it. They know the rules. But this one was done, you know, what did he say, 17? So that was back.
I guess I have to admit, I've driven up and down that road many times, and I've never thought that sign was out of whack. I mean, it just seems like it fits there, but,
It's larger than all the other ones on the
Yeah.
building. It is larger than all the other ones on the building.
I think it might be, I mean, like, I think of like a bank that has the name of the bank written on all four sides of it and has a sign. Those are all in compliance with the
That
frontage where
is,
the door is.
that is the building itself. That owner owns that entire building.
Mhm.
So that we're allowing a different square footage based on the fact that they're in compliance with what the building's allowed itself. In this scenario, you have this is a multi-tenant building.
Mhm.
So they're only allowed so much frontage. They were able to use, like the bank buildings are able to use both entrances because they're both sides of it, and that's their frontage. They're the owner of the entire building. There's a difference when there's a multi-tenant. I mean, each tenant is allowed, so in other words, John Koselecki's building is 160 feet long. If John put a sign up, he could have 160 square feet. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So the bank is getting their entire lineal frontage on those sides. There's not a multi-tenant going in there.
Wouldn't John be able to put 320 up?
On both sides, he would only use the frontage side of the building. So like Gate City has so much frontage there, they split that up on both sides of the building to use that square footage. And a few other banks, same with Bravera. I mean, if you measure their lineal footage there of their building, it makes the compliance. That make sense?
I mean, yeah, somewhat, but it's
still
pretty,
still
pretty
gray.
big.
It's still gray, yeah. Well, we are definitely working on the code, as Josh, Mr. Skluschek knows, that there's a lot of things that need to be revamped in there, but this has been used and reused for the last 20 years. And I got that verification from the building official himself. Leonard has always used the frontage the same way. So if that gets rewritten in the future, then, I mean, it gets rewritten, but it's worked to this point.
So my motion is to amend the existing motion to state that the variance is for the existing signage. If it were to be replaced, it has to fall back into code.
And that was seconded by Pat.
yes.
Any further discussion? Take a voice vote. Bruce,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Trevor,
Aye.
Sean,
Guess I'm gonna say aye, but I still don't agree with our variance. So,
okay, you're gonna,
I agree
Yeah,
with
what-
the amendment, but I don't agree with the variance.
yeah, okay.
So,
So
Well,
the-
that's-
the-
I don't know if I should say no or,
So it's a two-part motion now. It's one, to allow the variance first and foremost, and then two, to put the qualification that it can't revert in the event it's
so
changed.
by voting yes for this, I'm not saying I agreed with the first one.
You would want to make sure that if the intent is you don't agree with the variance, then your vote should be no.
Okay, no.
Mine's the same direction, no.
Thank you.
And then I would just request that Mr. Dukart please inform Mr. Steiner of that change to the motion. He still gets a variance, but on the term and condition that it can't change.
I still think that's kind of different that there is a sign on the front of that, on the street side of that, when there's no entrance on that side. Anyhow, any other business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we adjourn this morning.
Motion by Pat.
Second.
By Trevor. We are adjourned. Thank you.